Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Today we are working on the 6th page of the Fairy Tales and Legends watercolor coloring book. It's a book that I hand make myself using watercolor paper and lithographs. So let's get started. This is the image that we're working on today, and once we finish it, it'll look something like this. Now, as always, I recommend having a plate, a porcelain plate, glass plate. Anything works as long as it's nice and smooth so that you can mix your colors on top of it. And then having a scrap piece of paper like I have here above the drawing, and jar of water, a rag, and whatever palette you're using, even if you're not using the palette that I make and sell, any palette works. I just suggest that you wet all of your colors first. Just dip your brush and get some water and just sprinkle it on top of every one of them, just because it'll make it easier to get more saturated colors as you need them. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get started. So the dragon, the main color here is green, and we're just gonna go straight for the green right out of the palette. This is it's a kind of a yellow green, very vibrant. If you have a different shade of green, honestly, whatever green you have, if you just add yellow to it, it'll gradually change. You also, if you put a little bit of brown, it may give it a more kind of like an earthy tone. Either way. So we're just going to use that, and then the initial wash, it'll be a flat wash. We're not doing any texture or anything, so we want to make sure there's a good amount of water in the mix, but also a decent amount of pigment, just because we want it to come out vibrant. So now that we have that mixed, we'll just go ahead and lay it in. Just a straight flat wash. And if you go outside of the lines a little bit, it's not a big deal. Just take your time. And just kind of flat wash just like this. We're not trying to make any textures, although some inconsistencies always happen, like right here. That's just because the nature of the medium. You can't always get it 100% even. Unless you put in a lot of effort, which at that point it kind of becomes a little counterintuitive to me. And just kind of go slowly around the face here. That's one thing that I've noticed, is if you ever make a piece that has any kind of an animal or a creature with a face, if you mess up on the face, it'll be very noticeable. But if you mess up anywhere else, it's barely noticeable. I think it's because people are naturally attracted to faces. Whenever we're looking at an image, usually we just look for the face. Okay, just very slowly. Get a little more. I don't anticipate this piece taking too long to make, since it's a very simplistic color palette. All of the ones in the Fairy Tales and Legends book are made to be kind of cartoony on purpose. I actually really like the vibrant colors and simplified shadows that a lot of cartoons have. Okay. Now, granted, you don't have to follow this. You could just do your own thing exactly as you wanted. You can change the colors. You can make it more expressive. In fact, in the future, I'll probably end up doing some videos just showing different variations of the same image. That's one of the things that I really enjoy about these watercoloring books, is that you can practice various techniques and then see how they come out on the exact same image, which can help a person refine their own technique or their own style. Just experimenting. Okay. I'm gonna add a little more over here in the middle because I feel like that one came out a little light, like I spread it out a bit too much. Okay. Okay, so that looks great so far. We're gonna let that dry. Now there's a lot of green. It's like all throughout the piece basically. So while it's drying, we're gonna try to focus on parts that aren't really touching the green areas that much. So what we'll do is we're gonna do the shadows of the clouds. And while the image is still relatively blank other than the green, it'll help you see a little better how to do that, how to make the shadows. So clouds have very soft shadows, so we're gonna go kind of it's gonna be very light, and we're gonna follow there's little lines in here in the shadows in the clouds, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so we're just gonna grab a little bit of brown and a little bit of the light blue. When you mix brown and blue, it gives you kind of like a very good bluer shade of gray, and that's one of my preferred shades to use for shadows, just because it looks more natural. If you just use straight black, often it makes shadows look more synthetic. The reason being is that it's very rare in nature that you see just a pure black or pure gray, unless you're doing kind of like something man-made like machinery or clothing technology. Let's see. So that is almost exactly what we need. It actually, the color that we will use is exactly that, except we need to dilute it with a little more water, just so that it doesn't come off as strong. So let's see. I'm gonna use that, and then yeah, that's about perfect. So all we're gonna do is, you'll see where there's like a little line. We're just gonna cover the cloud like this, and then also up here, and it doesn't have to be perfect, you're just kind of following the guideline, and then just like that. And that's pretty much one of the shadows of one of the, that's the shadow of one of the clouds. We can always go back and add a little more outline, like on the bottom, because clouds tend to be darker on the bottom, so usually the shadows are stronger at the very bottom, almost like an outline. We can do that later on though. So for now, we're just gonna kind of fill it in and just following where that little suggestion is, and we're good. Yeah, so that's good. We can go ahead and rinse our brush, and then the next color will be the spikes, the underbelly, really just the second color in the dragon. There's only two colors in the dragon, I mean, if you're not counting the shading. So yeah, we will do that. We'll go ahead and we'll grab some yellow ochre. Now if you don't have this color in your palette, all you need to do is just take some brown with some yellow and mix them together. Definitely a lot more yellow than brown, and even throwing in a little bit of white might help get them more accurate mixture. Okay. And we want to keep this, we don't want it to be too saturated also. We're just gonna, let's see. So I'm actually gonna add a little bit of brown to that. A little bit more. Let's see. A little more. Okay, that's good, but we need more water so it's more transparent. Let's see. Okay, that's good. Alright, so we're just going to use that and go ahead and get the kind of like the membrane in the wings. Now, the light in this image is coming from top left, so it's coming down like this. So what we're coloring in right now, the underneath of the wings, we don't really have to worry about being as perfect about that, just because we will be adding a lot of shadow in that area. Okay, over here, and actually also the horns and the spikes on the back. So all of this, we just add the same color to it. And here in the membrane of the gills on the head, there's a little bit of a spike showing there. Underneath of the underbelly. Grab that. Okay. And also, actually, you know what? We're gonna leave the teeth, the fangs that are sticking out, we'll leave those white. They'll look a little better that way. We can always go back and add some after we finish the piece. Like if we think that it doesn't look quite right, we can always add a little color to them. But I think for some reason, just leaving them white will just look better. You know, get a little more water. And then this wing, just kind of getting that in there. And then right here. Like that. Okay. Color that in there. Okay. And then the other spikes over here. Okay. Oh, missed a little bit right there. That's all right. Okay, so that's coming together pretty quickly. Just rinsing my brush. And then while we let those areas dry, so most of it is actually pretty dry right now, but there's some wet areas here, here, and here, since we just did that. So while that's drying, we can go ahead and mix up some darker green. So we'll go ahead, we'll start by getting some more of the green, yellow green. Okay. And then we're gonna add some brown to it. A little bit of, oh, that's too much brown. That is too much brown. Actually, that's probably okay. Honestly, just because what'll happen is, test it out here on the scrap paper. If this green is darker, it'll just make it look like the lighter parts. It'll just make it seem as though there's a higher source of light that's hitting the object. So that's fine. We can maybe add just a little bit more green, and just to kind of like bring it down a little bit. Although it's gonna be, yeah, it's very similar. There's a slight difference, and that's fine. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna, all the underneath of the wing, the parts that are scaly, we're just gonna go ahead and, or the green parts, just gonna go ahead and like that. Just slowly We're gonna cover that. I'm gonna go ahead and put like that, just halfway through the part that's holding the wing. Like that. A little bit of a, almost like an outline. And then this one right here, we're gonna cover this whole thing. Okay. Also over here, and the little spike coming out on the wing. Just gonna go like that. It looks good. See how that already made it look like it's darker? It will look even better once we add the darker brownish color to the membrane, the underside of the membrane. But that already made it look that much more different. So we're gonna add here, look where the mouth is. Actually, I'm gonna start right here with the jaw. That, like that, going down here. Also this arm, kind of the underneath of the arm. And just take your time. Here. I'm putting a little more in the front of the muzzle here, just because if the light is coming this way, there'll be more shadow there. And we're gonna kind of put like a little bit of a outline almost where the teeth are. There we go. Also, I'm just gonna do just very slowly, just kind of put in a little line right above the eye, underneath the eyebrow. Kind of like showing that the eye is in the head, like there's a little bit of depth to it. So it's not just sticking on top of the head. And then a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, just to show form. Nothing too big. And then a little bit right there. And then this wing, showing right here. So it's kind of curved. So the dark part would be right here. So we're kind of like, it's an interesting angle on this object because we're almost like looking at it from the side and then underneath. So it's a tricky angle. So we can cover all of this. Kind of like some of the light is peeking in here. Yeah, a little bit like that. And then, excuse me. So we're also going to add a little bit right here, coming down like this, because the wing itself would be casting a shadow onto the body. So we're going to go like this, and then also like this. There we go. So like as it's coming out, it's also casting a shadow right there. And then this, the little foot is underneath the leg, so that's all in shadow. And then also a little bit right here. And then right here. And then under this, underneath the palm, like that. Okay, so we're good on all that. A little bit of the edge here. And then finishing up the wing right there, so that's good. And also back here, the tail going down. So the tail is a little weird because different parts of it are being illuminated as it twists, so it's not the same shadow throughout. So like here is the bottom of the tail that's in shadow, and as it twists, it goes a little bit on the top, and then more on the top here. And then as it goes back down, you get a little bit down here like this. Okay, good on that. And then I'm gonna rinse our brush. I just stopped to take a look at it from a distance. Feel free to stop at any point and give some distance to look at it That way you can get a better idea of how it looks. I made it look maybe a little too... yeah, the shadow is highly contrasting on the green, which isn't bad. It's just, yeah, it just makes it look like the sun is just shining much brighter than the previous example. But also you have to remember that when it dries, when those shadows dry, they will become lighter. So they're still in the process of drying, so yeah, so we're still good right there. Okay, so next we'll go ahead and we'll darken up this color. And we'll do that by adding brown to it. Now, if we wanted to, we could also add a little bit of blue. The shadow that we did on the green part of the dragon, we only added brown, which gives the shadow a warmer tone. But if you add more blue to the shadow, it'll actually make it look more cool, which usually shadows are a little cooler, and you can add more contrast that way. It's just that because the contrast is already pretty high here, there's no real need to do that. Also, it keeps it more cartoony looking. If you want to make it more realistic looking, then you would add more cooler tones to the shadow. Okay. Let's see, so yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. So I'm just gonna tilt my head a little bit just to look at it from different angles to see how dry the shadows are. That looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab that, and we will go ahead and we'll throw a bunch right here. Okay. And right here. And also we're just going to cover all of this. Now then, since this part of the wing is thinner, presumably thinner, more light is peeking through it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to rinse off our brush, dry it off a little bit, and then smooth out that edge. Make it smoother so that it's a softer shadow as it transitions from where the dark is to the lighter. Okay. And then we're going to add the darker brownish color to the underbelly. We're just going to cover all of this. And you might ask yourself, why did we do the first coat if all of it is going to be covered? So part of the reason for that is if we didn't do that, it would look inconsistent with the rest of the places that we're adding shadows that are the same color. Also, there's going to be some changes, like right here, back in the tail, there's shadow, 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 and then as it twists, we're going to leave some of that shadow off so that there's more consistency in the color and how it looks throughout the piece. And here I just dried off my brush a little bit so I can pick up some of the excess. So that's good. Okay. And also I am going to give a little bit of a shadow right there in the membrane where the gills are in the head. And then a little bit right here. A little bit underneath the horns, just to give it a little more depth. Like that. Well, that looks good. A little bit down here where the back spike is. And just a little bit like that. A little bit right here. And a little bit here. Okay. Okay, so that looks good. Continue with putting more right here. Like that. And then also here, just a quick wash on top of that. Okay, rinse off my brush, same thing. Dry off on the rag. And then soften up the edge for both of these, like that. Alright, so we're getting pretty close to being finished here. We did a lot of work pretty quickly. I really like how much the dragon pops up out of the page, so it almost looks like it looks like it's in the foreground, as it should, but it really looks nice how much it's popping out of the page, almost like it's flying away from the clouds. Like, yeah, I'm really happy with the color choices. And then, while all of that is drying, oops, there's a little bit of water that fell here. I'm going to pick it up with my brush, maybe dab it a little bit. There we go. So while all of that is drying, we're just going to grab some of the lighter blue, kind of dilute it a bit, and then do a couple of test strokes. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So now we're just going to lay in the background for the sky. It's very simple. It's about the simplest thing you can do here. Just kind of go in and then just color around the dragon. And just slowly, just kind of go in. It doesn't even have to be perfect. You can leave a little bit of spots. Just kind of go around the clouds. And down here. Kind of make it a little textured if you want. The background sky does not have to be perfect. Like, it could just be almost like a vignette where you're emphasizing one part more than the others, and therefore just kind of like rippling it out like that. Okay, and then do that and that. And then right here. Okay, just fill all that in. And over here underneath the wing and over the cloud, and just a couple of quick strokes to make it look more like it's almost like it's fading out. I don't even know if that's the right word. Just kind of like transitioning, because I don't want it to I don't want to color the whole thing. I don't want all of the corners to be covered with like blue, just because it makes the image look less interesting. So just kind of like that. Maybe show some of the texture of the paper, like that. Let's see, I'm going to step back from it for a moment. Maybe add a little more right here. That way we can see the whole dragon against the background pretty well. Okay, let's see again. Okay, so honestly, we are pretty much done here. Now, just to stay consistent with the other ones, I will also be putting a black outline on this one. And as I said previously, you can use the black paint if you want to. I'm going to use my black ink pen here just because if I use the black color, the black watercolor here, I would have to keep my brush very up and down straight, so I'll be blocking a lot of the camera. So just to avoid that, I'll be using my pen, and you can honestly use any pen. Like for example, here's just a regular old pen. I think I got it from Walmart. Just a black ballpoint pen, and you can just go in. Hopefully I'm not blocking the camera too much. You can see you'll get the exact same results as if you have one of these ink pens. Just like that. And you don't have to add the black outline if you don't want to. I just really like how much it makes it pop. And you don't even have to add it everywhere. Like I'm going to add it on the bottom here, leave it on the top. I'm just going to leave it so it actually emphasizes the lighter areas. Like that. That. Maybe outline the teeth here a little bit. And the eyeball, definitely. There we go. And the nostrils. Like that. There, claws, like that, and just go slowly, one piece at a time, deciding where exactly you want to emphasize the outlines. As you can see, I'm doing mostly the parts that are more in the shadow. It. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm going to step back again, see how it looks. Maybe over here. Over here. Perfect. Yeah, I'm very happy with that, with how that looks. I actually realized I left this part of the wing. I totally forgot to color that in. And just kind of referring back to what I said in the beginning, I didn't even notice that just because when you look at the painting, you're kind of focused right here. So the further out you go, like the mistakes kind of like this line a little bit here, like you don't even really notice that, you know, maybe unless somebody points it out. But yeah, so if you make a little mistake here and there, it's not a big deal. But yeah, I'm very happy with how that looks, and we're done. So that was pretty much it for that one. Hopefully it made sense. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. Shoot me an email. I'll leave my website in the description. I always try to get back within 24 hours. And also tag me. If you decide to do something different, color it a different way, make it look different in any way, even if it's the exact same thing. I love seeing what people do with them. So feel free to tag me, and I'll see you next time.